The Adventure of a Little Wood Goblin. Once upon a time, one little wood goblin named Babs went for a walk in the forest. His family happily lived in a house in the woods. Babs was the only child of a wood goblin mother and a wood goblin father. They loved him as much as humans love their children and tried to raise him as a strong, smart, kind and brave wood goblin. Babs was quite a clever little goblin and was not afraid of anything. He felt safe and confident in the forest. Little Goblin has met many different species of animals and birds and even made some friends among hedgehogs and squirrels. He was a perfect goblin child, approximately 40 centimeters in height, with big green eyes and a pug nose. All his body was covered with long, harsh hair like straw. Also, he loved wearing a big white hat that he had found in the forest a while ago. In his free time, Babs loved to play in the forest with squirrels and hedgehogs. He was also quite a good dancer, as his mother used to say. Babs loved swimming in the local lake, and collecting berries and mushrooms in the forest. Since Babs was the only goblin child, he was a little bit lonely and bored, but he tried to cheer himself up. He has always believed that one day he will meet another goblin kid who would become his friend. So, our little goblin Babs put on his hat and went for a walk. He took with him a massive basket for mushrooms and berries. But what Babs did not know is that it was not going to be a usual walk. That sunny, beautiful, and special day was going to change his life for good. Babs considered himself big enough to bring some food to the family. The goblin family has been struggling lately as more and more humans were coming to the forest trying to pick mushrooms and berries. The thing is, the goblins were vegetarians. Babs went quite far from his home. There were no beautiful mushrooms around his house, so he was going further and further into the forest. La, la, na, na, hey, hey. Babs was singing a melody to himself, which he had heard once from some visitors in the woods. He did not understand a word, but the tune was spinning round and round in his head. He did not notice how he started swinging from left to right, rotating and jumping up and down to the melody he was singing. He also did not see how he bumped into something big and soft. Eh! Babs started screaming loudly. Eh! The big human child was screaming too. Why are you screaming, beast? Babs was surprised that a human child's voice was so soft and beautiful but loud. I am not a beast, the massive human child was a 12-year-old girl. Suddenly Babs remembered how his goblin parents used to frighten him. Stay away from humans, Babs, they are all evil, especially little ones, they make you think they are cute and friendly, but these are all tricks. So, he yelled again. Stop screaming. You make me deaf. The girl's voice brought Babs back to reality. I can't. Babs closed his eyes with his hairy hands. Are you afraid of me? The girl looked curious. What a surprise. I had no idea that I looked creepy. She began laughing. My name is Hanna. What is your name, little goblin? Hanna gave Babs a big smile and put forward a vast hairless hand. Poor, little, terrified Babs had never encountered people before. However, his parents made sure he knew enough about them. Also, they have told him to run away any time he sees a human. Obviously, they considered humans as the greatest threat to their kind. However, Little Goblin decided that he was heroic enough and replied, Helio, I am Babs. This is my forest, and these are my mushrooms. He pointed his little, funny finger at an enormously huge basket that the girl was holding in her hand. It seemed so unfair for Babs that he could not find any beautiful mushrooms, while this human child had her basket full of delicious mushrooms. Hanna, on the other hand, did not think that she had taken food from the wood goblins. But she was also a nice girl, and her parents have taught her not to be greedy. What would my parents say if they knew I have met a little, cute, but a bit angry and definitely hungry goblin child, thought Hanna. Well, it does not matter, as I am here by myself and I can make my own decision, she thought. Here. Hanna put the basket in front of Babs. You can take it. Are you serious? Babs looked surprised, as he did not know that humans can be kind and generous. But what will you bring home? What is your family going to have for dinner? Babs's voice sounded worrying. Ha ha ha, Hanna could not stop laughing. We have so much other food to eat, so do not worry about us, Babs. So much other food? Babs had no idea that there was other food apart from mushrooms and berries. Yes, silly. Have you ever tried chocolate? Hanna took a piece of milk chocolate out of her pocket and offered it to Babs. Babs hesitated for a while, thinking whether he should trust this human child or not. Still, his curiosity was stronger than his doubts, so he gave up and took the chocolate. Once he put a little piece of it in his mouth and had his first taste, he could not believe that it was so delicious. In fact, it was the tastiest food that Babs has ever had in his short goblin's life. He didn't feel fear and hesitations any longer, but absolute happiness. Do you like the chocolate? Asked Hanna. I also have some cookies. Would you like to try? She added. Babs only nodded as his mouth was full of chocolate. Hanna gave him some cookies with delicious jam. Once Babs put one in his mouth, and a wave of joy hit him. Hanna's laugh brought him back to reality. All your food is so delicious. Babs's voice sounded envious. Why do you come here and take our food then? Look. My basket is empty, but I need to bring some food to my family. Babs looked sad. Sorry, Babs, I wasn't aware of it, said Hanna. Babs was about to respond, but suddenly something fell from the tree and struck him so hard that he chopped down on the ground. Babs became so terrified, so he yelled again, "AAA, get away from me!" Hanna was taken by surprise and started shouting too, but when she realized that it was an extremely huge owl holding Babs' neck and definitely trying to lift him, she stopped. Meanwhile, poor, scared Babs was fighting as hard as he could. By turning from one side to another, he was trying to stop the owl from lifting him. The gray-brown, enormously huge owl had large yellow eyes and a short, curved, downward-facing beak that was hooked at the end. Owl's long toes had long and sharp talons that were explicitly designed for gripping and tearing its prey. This was a predator capable of taking down victims larger than itself. Once Hanna realized that this was not an accident and the owl was not an innocent bird, but a predator, she took the basket and bashed the bird. The bird made a short sound, like someone hit a drum, hit a tree and fell. Hanna stood between the goblin and the owl, in case the owl tried to attack Babs again. But the owl decided to leave its prey for now and flew away. Here. Hanna gave her hand to Babs and helped him to get up. Babs seemed even shorter as he pulled in his neck and his big, white hat was lying on the ground. Why the owl attacked you? Hanna was surprised. I did not know that owls eat goblins. Haha. That meant to be a joke, but Babs did not understand it. We have only one enemy, and they are owls. They always hunt little goblins and eat them. That was what my parents told me. That is why I am the only goblin child in this forest. Babs was breathing heavily. Poor, Naive, little Goblin was so distracted by the sweet chocolate and yummy cookies that he had completely forgotten about the time. He should have been heading home an hour ago. This was the time of the day when owls became active and extremely dangerous. I need to go back home, but I am so afraid that the owl will hunt me down. Babs was frightened. Don't be afraid. I will walk you home and make sure this ugly bird won't have you for dinner. Hanna's voice was so brave, so Babs felt more confident. It would be so nice, but what about you? Aren't you afraid of owls? His innocence and care touched Hanna. Do not worry. They should be afraid of me. I have everything to protect you and protect myself. Also, I am too big and too heavy, so no one can take me away. She gave Babs another big smile. Babs put his big white hat on, picked the basket with mushrooms and smiled at Hanna back. Let's go. He turned and walked back home. Hanna was following him, making sure no owl could hurt her new little, funny and cute friend. As they were walking through the forest, Hanna asked as many questions as she wanted, and Babs was so happy to talk to someone. He told her about his goblin parents and his friends from the forest. He also showed her how he could dance, and Hanna laughed and applauded and screamed, "Bravo!" Near the place they met. She told him about her big family. That deeply surprised Babs, as she had parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. He was wondering how they all fit in one home. But he was too shy to ask her. He just thought that humans were not so dangerous, as his parents used to say. In fact, they are funny, generous, a bit odd but kind. As Babs and Hanna were walking and chatting, the way back to Babs's home wasn't too long, and soon they approached the little glade where Babs lived with his parents. Here is my home. Suddenly, Babs felt miserable. Despite the owl's attack, he had such a fantastic time with Hanna. She was the friend who he always wished to have. Can you come to the forest tomorrow, Hanna? If Babs' face was not covered with long, harsh hair, he would have probably turned red. I would love to. What are we going to do? Surprisingly, Hanna was happy as if it was the best offer in her life. I am going to introduce you to my friends, hedgehogs and squirrels, Babs said. Haha. Hanna laughed again, and her laugh was so twangy. I have never had such friends. See you tomorrow at the same place, Babs. Hanna waved and walked away. Meanwhile, our cute little goblin came back home with heaps of mushrooms. Goblin's parents were already worried about him and asked where he had been. Babs didn't want to lie to them, but he knew they would be against his friendship with a human child. So, he said untruth for the first time in his life. The next morning the goblin mother was going to cook mushrooms for breakfast. She took a few big and tasty mushrooms out of the basket. The next moment she screamed and pushed the basket away. There was a little piece of chocolate lying among the mushrooms. Babs! Goblin's mother was screaming loudly that local birds flew away. Come here, Babs, we need to talk. But little Babs did not hear his mother. He was already far away, on his way to another great adventure.